Trembling with rage, Monica Washington clutched her phone, watching the video go viral. 3 million views in 2 hours. The flight attendant's sneer played on loop. People like you belong in the back. Tomorrow's board meeting would be interesting since Monica wasn't just any passenger. She was Skyline Air's new CEO. Before we dive into this shocking story of discrimination at 300,000 feet, drop a quick comment telling me where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever witnessed or experienced discrimination during travel. This story will show how one powerful moment of prejudice changed an entire airline forever. Monica Washington never expected to become the center of a viral social media storm. At 38, she had just been appointed the first Black female CEO of Skyline Airlines after 2 decades of breaking barriers in corporate America. Her appointment had made headlines across business publications, but she had deliberately kept a low profile in mainstream media. The Harvard MBA graduate preferred to let her work speak for itself. Growing up in a working-class Baltimore neighborhood, Monica had been raised by her grandmother after losing both parents in a devastating car accident when she was just 8 years old. Her grandmother, Alma, had worked as a cleaner for various airlines at BWI Airport, often bringing home stories about the glamorous world of air travel that fascinated young Monica. Someday, baby girl Alma would tell her you're gonna fly first class to somewhere amazing. But Alma had also shared darker stories about how Black airline employees were often relegated to the most menial positions, how they were passed over for promotions, and how Black passengers received subtly different treatment than relegated problems, their white counterparts. These early lessons stayed with Monica as she climbed the corporate ladder. Each promotion came with twice the scrutiny faced by her white colleagues. Each success was questioned or attributed to diversity initiatives rather than her exceptional talents. She'd learned to work twice as hard to speak with unshakable confidence and to document everything. When the Skyline Airlines board selected her as CEO after a nationwide search, Monica knew exactly how she wanted to start her tenure. Unlike her predecessor, who traveled exclusively by private jet and first-class cabins, Monica believed in experiencing her company exactly as customers did. "How can I improve something I haven't experienced?" she explained to her executive assistant Dominic, who thought she was making a mistake. "The board expects you to act like a CEO," Monica Dominic warned. "Flying economy on your own airline sends mixed messages." Monica simply smiled. "The board hired me to transform this airline. We've lost market share for 6 consecutive quarters because we've forgotten what customers actually experience." Her decision was made. For her first official flight as CEO, she would travel incognito in economy class from New York to Chicago. The trip would give her 3 hours to observe operations firsthand before tomorrow's critical board meeting, where she would present her vision for the airline's future. On the day of the flight, Monica dressed in jeans, a simple navy, sweater, and minimal makeup. She pulled her normally straightened hair into a natural curly ponytail and added glasses she rarely wore publicly. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized the polished executive who had stared back at her earlier that morning. As she boarded Flight SK-457, Monica felt a thrill of anticipation. This was exactly how she planned to reshape Skyline, NKS, through direct experience and observation. She'd already noticed the boarding process was inefficient, causing unnecessary delays. The gate agent had barely glanced at passengers, missing opportunities for genuine customer connection. Once aboard, Monica settled into seat 23C, an aisle seat in the middle of economy. Around her, a diverse group of passengers arranged their belongings and got comfortable. To her left sat an elderly Black man who introduced himself as Gregory Thomas. On her right, a young Latina woman named Selena Hernandez struck up a friendly conversation about Chicago restaurants. As the boarding process completed, Monica observed the flight attendants. Most moved efficiently through the cabin, helping passengers with bags and answering questions. But one flight attendant, whose name tag read, Heather Wilson caught Monica's attention immediately. Heather, a blonde woman in her mid-50s, displayed dramatically different behavior depending on which passengers she assisted. In first class, she was warm and attentive, leaning in to chat with passengers and remembering their names. The moment she crossed the invisible boundary into economy, her smile tightened, her posture stiffened, and her voice took on a clipped, almost annoyed quality. Most concerning to Monica was how this behavior seemed further amplified when Heather interacted with passengers of color. Brief requests from white passengers received smiles and immediate assistance. Similar requests from Black or Latino passengers were met with barely concealed impatience or outright dismissal. Monica discreetly took notes on her phone, careful to appear as though she was simply texting. As CEO, she had access to customer satisfaction scores broken down by routes and flight crews. Now she understood why this particular route consistently underperformed despite being one of their most profitable. The numbers had told part of the story, but seeing it firsthand filled in the critical human element that spreadsheets could never capture. First time flying Skyline, Gregory asked, noticing her attention to the crew's movements. First time in a while, Monica answered truthfully. I'm evaluating the experience. Gregory nodded knowingly. Been flying this route monthly for years. Some crews are wonderful. Others. He trailed off, with a meaningful glance toward Heather. Let's just say some folks never got the memo that it's the 21st century. As the plane reached cruising altitude, Monica watched carefully as Heather began the beverage service. The pattern continued: warm, personalized service for white passengers and perfunctory, sometimes borderline rude interactions with passengers of color. Monica knew this flight would be revealing, but she hadn't expected to witness such blatant discrimination. As a Black woman who had navigated predominantly white corporate spaces her entire career, she was no stranger to microaggressions and subtle prejudice. But seeing it directed at paying customers by a representative of her airline made her stomach tighten with anger and resolve. This was exactly why the board had hired her. Skyline needed transformation not just in its business operations, but in its fundamental culture. The fact that this behavior had apparently gone unchecked spoke volumes about previous leadership's priorities. As the beverage cart approached her row, Monica prepared herself for what was about to happen. She didn't have to wait long for the first confrontation. 30 minutes into the flight, Monica pressed the call button above her seat. She'd been observing Heather Wilson's interactions with passengers throughout the cabin and had yet to receive even the most basic service offered to others. The flight attendant had completely skipped their row during the initial beverage service, despite making eye contact with both Monica and Gregory before turning the cart around. After 5 minutes with no response to her call button, Monica pressed it again. Another 5 minutes passed. Around her, white passengers who pressed their call buttons received prompt attention from Heather. Finally, after the third attempt and nearly 30 minutes of waiting, Heather appeared standing over Monica with a tight-lipped expression. "You've been pressing the button." The question came out as an accusation. "Yes," Monica replied evenly. "I'd like a bottle of water, please." Heather's eyes narrowed slightly. "We've already completed the beverage service. You'll have to wait until the next round." "I wasn't offered a beverage during service," Monica pointed out. "Neither was Mr. Thomas beside me." Gregory nodded in confirmation but remained silent, his expression suggesting this was a familiar experience. "We must have missed you," Heather replied dismissively. "I'll bring water when I have a moment." She turned to leave without waiting for a response. "Excuse me," Monica called after her. "When will that be?" Heather turned back, her annoyance barely concealed. "When I'm not busy with other passengers who haven't been bothering me with the call button." The exchange drew attention from nearby passengers. A white businessman across the aisle gave Monica a sympathetic glance before pressing his own call button. Heather returned immediately with a warm smile. "What can I help you with, sir?" Her tone had transformed completely. "Could I get some water? And actually, are there any empty seats in the preferred section? It's a bit cramped here." Of course, let me check for you. Heather consulted her tablet. There's an aisle seat in row 15. Would you like to move there? That would be great, thanks. Heather beamed. No problem at all. I'll bring your water to your new seat. Feel free to move whenever you're ready. Monica exchanged glances with Gregory, who shook his head slightly. 10 minutes later, a Latino family with a fussy toddler asked Heather if they could move to empty adjacent seats to keep their child more comfortable. That's not possible, Heather stated firmly. Airline policy requires passengers to remain in their assigned seats unless there's an emergency. Those seats are premium economy anyway. But you just moved that man to premium economy, the father pointed out. Heather's expression hardened. That was a different situation. If you have a complaint, you can file it with customer service after we land. Throughout this exchange, Monica discreetly recorded video on her phone. As CEO, she needed concrete evidence of what was happening, not just anecdotes that could be dismissed or explained away. Another flight attendant, Thomas Coleman, a young black man who appeared to be newer to the job, watched these interactions with visible discomfort. When he passed through the cabin later with a trash bag, he quietly apologized to the Latino family and slipped them some extra snacks for their child. Monica noted his name for future reference. In her experience, employees like Thomas, who showed empathy and a commitment to equal treatment, were the backbone of successful customer service organizations. 2 hours into the 3-hour flight, Monica needed to use the restroom. The line for the economy lavatory stretched down the aisle with at least 8 people waiting. Looking toward the front of the plane, Monica could see that the first-class restroom was unoccupied with no one waiting. She made her way forward, passing through premium economy, into the first-class cabin. Just as she reached for the lavatory door, Heather stepped directly into her path. "Excuse me," Heather said loudly, clearly intending to be heard by the first-class passengers. "Economy passengers must use the restrooms in the back of the plane." Monica spoke quietly. "The economy restrooms have a long line. This one is unoccupied." "That's not relevant," Heather replied, her voice rising further. "First-class amenities are reserved for first-class passengers. People like you belong in the back." The cabin fell silent. Several first-class passengers looked up from their devices, expressions ranging from embarrassment to discomfort. One older white woman in the front row actually nodded in agreement with Heather. Monica felt her cheeks burn not from embarrassment but from controlled fury. In her 20-year career, she had experienced countless microaggressions, but rarely had she encountered such blatant disrespect. "People like me," Monica repeated calmly, though her heart pounded. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Heather's eyes widened slightly, perhaps realizing she'd crossed a line that might be difficult to explain away. "Economy passengers," she clarified, though her tone suggested otherwise. "It's company policy. Now please return to your seat, before I have to call the air marshal." Monica held Heather's gaze for a long moment before turning away. As she walked back to her seat, she heard whispers from other passengers who had witnessed the exchange. Some looked away uncomfortably. Others watched with sympathy or outrage on her behalf. Thomas Coleman, who had witnessed the confrontation, approached her halfway down the aisle with a bottle of water. "I'm sorry about that," he said quietly. "There's actually no policy about restroom usage during flight unless there's turbulence or the captain has the seatbelt sign on." "Thank you for clarifying," Monica replied. She took the water bottle, noting how Thomas's simple act of decency stood in stark contrast to Heather's behavior. This was exactly the kind of information she needed to gather. The problem wasn't just one prejudiced employee. It was a system that allowed such behavior to continue unchecked. Back at her seat, Gregory leaned over. "You okay? That was ugly." "I'm fine," Monica assured him, her mind already racing ahead to how she would address this situation once the plane landed. "Just gathering information about what Gregory asked." Monica smiled slightly. "About exactly how much needs to change." After returning to her seat, Monica opened her notes app and began documenting everything she had witnessed so far. The confrontation at the first-class lavatory was just the most blatant example of a pattern she had observed throughout the flight. She recorded time-specific comments and the names of other passengers who had witnessed the incidents. Gregory Thomas, still seated beside her, watched with interest. "You're being very methodical," he observed. "Most people would just be fuming." Monica smiled. "I've learned that anger without evidence leads nowhere, especially for people who look like us." Gregory nodded in understanding. He was in his 70s, with silver hair and the dignified bearing of someone who had lived through the civil rights era. "Been flying this route twice monthly for 15 years, visiting my daughter in Chicago. Seen it all. But that Heather, she's something special." "How so?" Monica asked, genuinely curious. "Most of the prejudiced ones try to hide it better. She barely bothers." He lowered his voice. "Last month, she accidentally spilled coffee on a black businessman's laptop. Didn't even apologize properly. Man lost important files, from what I gathered." Monica made note of this incident. "Did he report it?" Gregory chuckled without humor. "He tried. Filed a complaint with customer service. Nothing came of it, of course. Man sitting next to him told me later he overheard Heather bragging that her brother-in-law is some executive at Skyline headquarters who makes complaints disappear." This information sent a chill through Monica. If true, it would explain how someone like Heather had remained employed despite what must be numerous complaints. It also suggested the discrimination problem at Skyline might run deeper than frontline staff. "Interesting," Monica said neutrally, making another note. Throughout the next hour, Monica continued her careful documentation. She observed Heather giving extra pillows and blankets to white passengers, while telling a South Asian family there were none left. She noted how Heather carefully avoided making eye contact with black passengers, including a well-dressed man in premium economy who had to ask 3 times for a glass of wine that was offered to others without request. The most telling interactions, however, were between Heather and the other flight attendants. Thomas Coleman clearly tried to compensate for Heather's behavior, quietly providing extra service to passengers she neglected. Another flight attendant, a young white woman named Rebecca, seemed uncomfortable with Heather's conduct but unwilling to confront her directly. During a quiet moment, Monica managed to make eye contact with Thomas as he passed down the aisle. She motioned him over. "Could I speak with you briefly?" she asked quietly. Thomas glanced toward the front of the plane where Heather was chatting with first-class passengers. "Of course, ma'am. How can I help?" "I've noticed some inconsistencies in service on this flight," Monica said carefully. "Is this typical?" Thomas hesitated, clearly weighing his response. "I'm relatively new to this route," he finally said, "still learning the ropes." Monica nodded, understanding his caution. "I appreciate the water earlier, and the way you're treating all passengers equally. It makes a difference." Something in her tone made Thomas look at her more closely. "Thank you for saying that. I try to provide the service I'd want my own family to receive." He paused, then added in a near whisper, "If you're concerned about what you've experienced today, customer service probably won't help much. Miss Wilson has connections in management." "So, I've heard," Monica replied. "Don't worry. I have other channels." As Thomas moved on, Monica felt a tap on her shoulder. A young white woman in the row behind her leaned forward. "Sorry to eavesdrop," she said, "but I've been recording some of what's happening. I'm Lauren Blake, a law student at Northwestern. What that flight attendant is doing is textbook discrimination. If you're planning to file a complaint, I'd be happy to send you my videos." "Thank you, Lauren," Monica said, genuinely touched. "That's very kind. I'm Monica Washington." Lauren's eyes widened slightly. "Wait, Monica Washington. As in the new CEO of Skyline Airlines, I just read about your appointment in Business Week." Monica put a finger to her lips. "I'd appreciate your discretion for the remainder of the flight." Lauren nodded eagerly. "Of course. But wow, this makes so much sense now. You're doing undercover, boss." "Something like that," Monica acknowledged. I believe in experiencing things firsthand. Their conversation was interrupted when Heather returned down the aisle, this time with the beverage cart for the second service. When she reached their row, she unceremoniously placed a plastic cup of water on Monica's tray without asking if she wanted anything else. The cup was filled so full that it immediately sloshed over the sides, wetting Monica's sleeve. "Oh, sorry about that," Heather said, without a trace of actual regret in her voice. Gregory received similar treatment, while Lauren and other white passengers were offered a complete selection of beverages with careful service. As Heather moved away, Monica used her phone to discreetly record the wet tray table and her stained sleeve. She also noticed Lauren behind her, doing the same. Halfway through documenting the incident, Monica looked up to find Heather staring at her from the end of the row. "Are you recording me?" Heather demanded, her voice rising. "I'm documenting my experience on this flight," Monica replied evenly. Heather's face flushed. "That's against airline policy. You need to delete that right now or I'll have you banned from Skyline Airlines." Several nearby passengers turned to watch the confrontation. Monica remained calm. "Could you please point me to where that policy is written?" she asked. "I don't recall seeing any prohibition against passengers recording their own experience in the safety information or terms of carriage." Heather's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You don't want to test me on this. I have friends in corporate who can make one phone call and put you on a no-fly list." The threat hung in the air between them. Monica held Heather's gaze steadily, mentally calculating her next move. As CEO, she could reveal her identity and end this immediately. But that would undermine her purpose in flying incognito in the first place. She needed to understand exactly how far this discrimination went and how the airline's systems either prevented or enabled it. "I understand," Monica finally said. "I'll stop recording." Heather nodded curtly and continued down the aisle, but Monica noticed her watching more closely for the remainder of the flight. When Heather was out of earshot, Gregory leaned over. "You're not really going to stop documenting this, are you?" Monica smiled slightly. "Let's just say I have a feeling Skyline's policies about passenger recordings might be changing very soon." As the flight progressed toward Chicago, tensions continued to escalate between Heather and the passengers she had targeted for discriminatory treatment. Monica observed how the cabin had essentially divided into two sections, those receiving proper service and those being deliberately neglected or treated with contempt. What troubled Monica most was how normalized this behavior seemed to be. Many passengers simply accepted the differential treatment with resigned expressions that suggested this was nothing new to them. Others looked away uncomfortably, but said nothing. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wondered if you should speak up? Comment number 1. If you've been in a situation where you saw someone being treated unfairly because of their race, hit that like button if you believe accountability matters, and subscribe if you want to see how justice finally comes to those who abuse their power. What would you do if you were in Monica's position? Would you reveal your identity as CEO or continue gathering evidence? Let's see what happened next in this shocking true story. The situation reached a breaking point when Monica stepped into the aisle to retrieve a book from her overhead bag. As she reached up, Heather was passing with the beverage cart and deliberately bumped into her. "You need to stay seated when the cart is passing," Heather snapped. "I was just getting my book," Monica explained, maintaining her composure. Heather's eyes fell to Monica's phone, which she'd placed on her seat. "Were you recording again? Give me that phone." "Excuse me." Monica's tone remained calm, but her expression hardened. "Passengers are not permitted to record flight attendants without consent. It's a privacy violation and a security concern." Heather extended her hand. "The phone, please." Monica knew this was a fabricated policy, but several nearby passengers were watching nervously. Creating a scene would only make other customers uncomfortable. "I'm not recording you," Monica stated. "But if it makes you more comfortable, I'll keep my phone put away for the remainder of the flight." Heather wasn't satisfied. "That's not good enough. You've been disruptive this entire flight." I need to confiscate your phone until we land, or I'll be forced to call the air marshal." Before Monica could respond, Lauren spoke up from behind her. "That's not airline policy. Passengers are allowed to have phones, and there's no regulation against recording your own experience." "Stay out of this," Heather snapped, "unless you want to be added to the incident report." Gregory Thomas, who had remained quiet during most interactions, finally spoke. "Young lady, I've been flying this airline for 15 years and I've never heard of such a policy. What you're doing constitutes harassment." Heather's face flushed with anger. "Sir, one more word from you and I'll have you removed from this aircraft when we land." The threat against an elderly man proved too much for other passengers. A white woman across the aisle stood up. "This is ridiculous. They've done nothing wrong." "Return to your seat immediately," Heather ordered. Instead of complying, more passengers began to speak up, creating a chorus of dissent that clearly caught Heather off guard. She hadn't expected white passengers to ally themselves with those she had targeted. In the midst of the growing tension, Thomas Coleman appeared, looking concerned. "Is everything all right here, Heather? We need to continue the service. These passengers are being disruptive and recording without permission," Heather stated. "I'm handling it." Thomas glanced at Monica apologetically. "Ma'am, could you please put your phone away for now, just to de-escalate the situation?" Understanding that Thomas was trying to help in the only way he could, Monica nodded and slipped her phone into her pocket. "Of course." Heather wasn't satisfied. "No, I need to confiscate it until we land. It's a security issue now." "That's not necessary," Thomas began, but Heather cut him off. "I'm the senior flight attendant on this aircraft. If you have a problem with my decisions, we can discuss it with the chief purser later." The thinly veiled threat was clear to everyone listening. Thomas hesitated, clearly torn between doing what was right and protecting his job. Monica made the decision for him. "It's fine," she said, and handed her phone to Heather. "I expect this to be returned to me intact when we land." Heather took the phone with a triumphant expression and walked away with Thomas following reluctantly behind her. "That was your evidence," Gregory said quietly. Monica smiled. "Don't worry. I sent most of it to my assistant before she took the phone, and it appears we have plenty of witnesses now." Indeed, several passengers were now openly discussing what they had observed, with many expressing outrage at Heather's behavior. The collective consciousness of the cabin had shifted from passive observation to active concern. Lauren leaned forward again. "I recorded that entire exchange. And I'm still recording. She can't take all our phones." "Thank you, Monica," said sincerely. A businessman from across the aisle approached their row. "I fly this route weekly," he said. "That flight attendant has been problematic for months. Many of us have complained, but nothing ever happens. Supposedly, she has connections in management." "What kind of connections?" Monica asked. "Her brother-in-law is Preston Wilson, VP of Operations," the man explained. "At least that's what she likes to tell people when they threaten to report her." Monica filed away this information. Preston Wilson was indeed her VP of Operations, though he was on her list for potential replacement due to the department's poor performance metrics. This connection explained a great deal. As the man returned to his seat, Monica noticed Thomas walking quickly down the aisle. He stopped beside her, pretending to check something in the overhead compartment while slipping her phone back onto her tray table. "She left it at the galley," he whispered. "I'm sorry about all this. Some of us have tried to report her behavior before, but the complaints never go anywhere." "Thank you, Thomas," Monica said. "May I ask how long you've been with Skyline?" 6 months, he replied. "This is my first job after flight attendant training." "And do you enjoy working for the airline?" Something in her tone made him look at her more carefully. "I love flying and helping passengers, but honestly, the culture could use some improvement." Monica nodded. "I couldn't agree more. Don't worry, things will be changing soon." Thomas gave her a curious look before continuing down the aisle. While checking her return phone, Monica discovered that not only were her videos and notes intact, but an additional text file had been added. Opening it, she found a brief message from Thomas. Miss Wilson has been reported multiple times for discrimination. Complaints disappear. Many of us are afraid to speak up because those who do get transferred to undesirable routes or lose their jobs for unrelated reasons. There are more of us who want to do better. We need leadership that cares. Monica immediately forwarded this information to Dominic along with her other evidence, adding instructions for him to begin a confidential investigation into complaint handling procedures and potential nepotism in operations management. As she was completing this task, she overheard a conversation between passengers a few rows ahead discussing a frequent flyer who had recently been banned from Skyline after filing discrimination complaints against Heather. "I know him," one man was saying. "Totally professional businessman who flies weekly." After his third complaint about her, suddenly his frequent flyer account was flagged for abusive behavior towards staff. Couldn't even book a flight. Monica added this to her growing list of concerns. The discrimination wasn't just coming from one flight attendant, Prom. It was being protected and enabled by systemic failures within her airline's corporate structure. As these revelations accumulated, Monica noticed Heather at the front of the cabin speaking into a phone with an agitated expression. Moments later, she marched back to Monica's row. "I've spoken with our ground supervisor," she announced loudly. "When we land, you'll be met by airport security for interfering with a flight crew member and violating airline policy. You'll be banned from flying Skyline Airlines in the future." The threat was delivered with such smug confidence that Monica almost broke her cover then and there. But she remained calm, knowing that revealing her identity now would cut short her information gathering. "I understand," Monica replied simply. Heather seemed taken aback by this calm acceptance. She had clearly expected fear or protest. After an awkward moment, she turned and walked away. Gregory patted Monica's arm sympathetically. "Don't worry, young lady. There are at least 20 witnesses here who will back up your version of events." Monica smiled. "I'm counting on that." As the announcement came that they were beginning their descent into Chicago, Monica reflected on everything she had learned during this flight. The problem was deeper and more systemic than she had anticipated. Addressing it would require not just disciplinary action against one employee, but a fundamental restructuring of accountability systems and corporate culture. She had come aboard seeking to understand her airline's customer experience. Instead, she had uncovered a cancer within the organization that needed to be removed entirely. 30 minutes before landing, as the plane began its initial descent into Chicago O'Hare International Airport, Monica noticed Gregory Thomas shifting uncomfortably in his seat. His breathing seemed labored, and beads of sweat had formed on his forehead despite the cool cabin temperature. "Are you all right, Mr. Thomas?" she asked quietly. Gregory attempted a reassuring smile that quickly turned to a grimace. "Just a bit of chest tightness. Happens sometimes. Nothing to worry about." But Monica recognized the signs from her company's mandatory first aid training. "How long have you been feeling this way?" "Started about 10 minutes ago," he admitted, pressing a hand to his chest. "Probably just indigestion." Monica immediately pressed the call button. When no one responded, after several minutes, she stood up and walked briskly to the galley where Thomas Coleman was preparing for landing. "Excuse me," she said urgently. "The gentleman in 23B is experiencing chest pain and difficulty breathing. I think he needs medical attention." Thomas's eyes widened. "I'll get our medical kit and notify the captain." "Thank you," Monica replied. "Does anyone on the crew have medical training?" "Heather is actually our designated medical responder on this flight," Thomas said with obvious concern. "I'll get her right away." Monica returned to her seat to find Gregory's condition visibly worsening. His breathing had become shallow and rapid, and his dark skin had taken on an ashen undertone. "Help is coming," she assured him, taking his hand. "Try to stay calm and take slow breaths if you can." Lauren leaned forward from the row behind. "I've taken CPR. Is there anything I can do?" "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Monica replied. "But thank you for offering." Thomas returned quickly with the medical kit, followed reluctantly by Heather. "What seems to be the problem?" Heather asked, her tone suggesting inconvenience rather than concern. "He's experiencing chest pain and difficulty breathing," Monica explained. "Possible cardiac symptoms." Heather barely looked at Gregory. "It's probably just anxiety or indigestion. We're landing soon, and medical services can check him then." Monica stared at her in disbelief. "This man needs immediate attention. At minimum, you should check his vitals and notify the captain about a possible medical emergency." "I'm the medical responder on this flight," Heather replied coldly. "And, in my assessment, this doesn't constitute an emergency that requires diverting the aircraft." Gregory's breathing became more labored. "Can't catch my breath," he managed to say. "See," Monica insisted, "he's in distress. You need to help him now." Heather's expression hardened. "Sir, try to calm down. Your agitation is making it worse." Monica stood up, her patience finally exhausted. "Are you refusing to provide medical assistance to a passenger in distress?" "I'm managing the situation according to protocol," Heather snapped. "Now please sit down. We're preparing for landing." Before Monica could respond, a woman across the aisle stood up. "I'm a doctor. Let me look at him." The passenger, a middle-aged South Asian woman, quickly moved to Gregory's side and began a basic assessment. "Sir, I'm Dr. Patel. I'm going to check your pulse and ask you a few questions." Heather attempted to intervene. "Ma'am, please return to your seat. I'm handling this." Dr. Patel ignored her, continuing her examination of Gregory. "His pulse is rapid and irregular. He's showing signs of potential cardiac distress." She looked up at Heather. "This man needs emergency medical attention. The flight should be diverted to the nearest airport." "That's not your decision to make," Heather insisted. "Actually, as a medical doctor, my assessment supersedes yours in this situation," Dr. Patel replied firmly. "FAA regulations are clear on this matter." Thomas, who had been watching with growing concern, spoke up. "I'll inform the captain immediately." "You'll do no such thing," Heather ordered. "I'm the senior flight attendant, and I'll notify the cockpit if necessary." Thomas hesitated only briefly before straightening his shoulders. "With all due respect, Heather, this is a medical emergency. I'm informing the captain now." He turned and hurried toward the cockpit. Fury flashed across Heather's face. "You're making a huge mistake," she called after him. By now, many passengers had noticed the commotion. Several had their phones out recording the scene despite Heather's previous threats about filming. Monica knelt beside Gregory, who was now receiving oxygen from Dr. Patel, using the plane's emergency medical kit. "Hang in there, Mr. Thomas," Monica said, squeezing his hand. "We're getting you help." Gregory managed a weak nod, his eyes reflecting fear and gratitude. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to a medical situation on board, we will be diverting to Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. We expect to land in approximately 15 minutes. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Flight attendants prepare for landing." Heather's face flushed with anger. She leaned down toward Monica and hissed, "This diversion will cost the airline thousands of dollars and disrupt hundreds of passengers' travel plans." All because you couldn't mind your own business. Something in Monica finally snapped. The accumulated weight of everything she had witnessed during this flight, the discrimination, the nepotism, the willful negligence, crystallized into a moment of absolute clarity. She stood up, facing Heather directly. "What would have happened if this man had died because you refused him medical attention? Would that have been good for the airline's bottom line?" "These people always exaggerate their problems," Heather muttered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. The cabin fell silent. The naked prejudice in the comment was undeniable. "These people," Monica repeated, her voice steady, but carrying throughout the quiet cabin. "What exactly do you mean by these people, Miss Wilson?" Realizing she had crossed a line that even her connections couldn't erase, Heather backtracked. I meant anxious passengers. They often mistake minor discomfort for serious medical issues. That's not what you meant, Monica stated firmly. And everyone here knows it. Phones throughout the cabin were now recording openly. The passengers had become a unified force bearing witness to something they could no longer ignore or explain away. Monica turned her attention back to Gregory and Dr. Patel, helping to keep him comfortable as the plane began its descent into Cleveland. Heather retreated to the galley, her authority effectively nullified by her own actions. As they prepared for landing, Lauren leaned forward again. I've been recording everything since the medical emergency began. I'm uploading it to social media now. People need to see this. Monica nodded, no longer concerned about maintaining her cover. Her priority now was ensuring Gregory received proper medical care and that Heather's behavior was fully documented. Thomas returned to their row. Medical personnel will board as soon as we land. They'll take him directly to Cleveland Clinic. It's one of the best cardiac centers in the country. Thank you for doing the right thing, Monica told him sincerely. Thomas lowered his voice. Between us, I've already submitted my report to the captain. Miss Wilson's behavior will be documented officially this time. I'm counting on that, Monica replied. As the plane touched down in Cleveland, Monica made a decision. Her anonymity had served its purpose. Now it was time for accountability. She pulled out her phone and recorded a brief statement, speaking clearly and directly into the camera. My name is Monica Washington. I'm the new CEO of Skyline Airlines. What I've witnessed on this flight today, discrimination, medical negligence, and abuse of power, will not be tolerated under my leadership. To all Skyline customers who have experienced similar treatment, I want you to know that change is coming starting today. She uploaded the video to her personal Twitter account, tagging Skyline Airlines' official handle. Within minutes, it began to spread across social media platforms, joining the videos already uploaded by Lauren and other passengers. The breaking point had arrived not just for this flight, but for Skyline Airlines as a whole. By the time emergency medical personnel boarded the aircraft in Cleveland to attend to Gregory Thomas, Monica's video statement had already accumulated over 50,000 views. Lauren's earlier upload showing Heather's confrontations with passengers and her dismissive response to the medical emergency were approaching similar numbers. As Gregory was carefully transferred to a stretcher, Monica walked alongside, providing what comfort she could. I'll make sure your daughter in Chicago knows what's happening, she promised him. And don't worry about any medical expenses. Skyline will cover everything. Gregory managed a weak smile. You're really the CEO. Yes, sir, Monica confirmed. About time they put someone sensible in charge, he murmured before being wheeled away. Once Gregory was safely on his way to Cleveland Clinic, Monica turned her attention to the unfolding crisis. Her phone was buzzing constantly with notifications, media requests, messages from board members, and updates from Dominic, who was coordinating the corporate response from headquarters. The videos were spreading across all major platforms. News outlets had picked up the story, initially reporting it as unnamed black economy passenger discriminated against. Turns out she's the airline's new CEO. Within hours, Monica's identity was confirmed, and the narrative shifted to undercover CEO exposes racism at major airline. Passengers from the diverted flight were being accommodated in Cleveland hotels while alternate transportation was arranged. Many chose to speak with waiting reporters, sharing their observations from the flight. I've never seen anything like it, one businessman told a CNN reporter. The flight attendant was blatantly discriminating against passengers of color. When that elderly gentleman needed medical help, she actually suggested he was exaggerating. If the CEO hadn't been there, the narrative was consistent across interviews. Passengers described pattern after pattern of discriminatory behavior, culminating in the medical emergency that had forced the diversion. From her hotel room, Monica monitored the unfolding storm while coordinating with her executive team. Skyline's initial PR response had been inadequate. a generic statement about investigating the incident and taking appropriate action. "This won't cut it," Monica told her communications director in a video conference. "We need to acknowledge specifically what happened, not hide behind corporate speak." "The legal team is concerned about admitting liability," the director explained. "I'm more concerned about our integrity," Monica replied firmly. "Draft a new statement acknowledging the discriminatory behavior witnessed on the flight and our commitment to addressing it immediately. Make it clear that the employee has been suspended pending investigation." While that process was underway, Monica checked on Gregory's condition. The hospital reported he was stable and responding well to treatment for what was confirmed as a minor heart attack. His daughter had been notified and was on her way from Chicago. Returning to social media monitoring, Monica found that the story had evolved yet again. Former Skyline employees were coming forward with their own accounts of discrimination within the company. Flight attendants described reporting incidents similar to what Monica had experienced, only to have their complaints mysteriously disappear. Ground crew members shared stories of being passed over for promotions, despite excellent performance records. Most damning were the accounts connecting directly to Preston Wilson, VP of Operations, and Heather's brother-in-law. Multiple former employees alleged that he had actively protected discriminatory staff while forcing out those who spoke against them. Skyline stock had begun to drop as investors reacted to the unfolding PR disaster. By evening, it was down nearly 8%, representing millions in lost market value. Monica's phone rang with a call from the board chairwoman, Eleanor Bennett. "This is quite a first week," Monica. Eleanor said, her tone carefully neutral. "It certainly wasn't what I had planned," Monica admitted. "The board is concerned about the stock price and potential lawsuits." "I'm more concerned about the rot I've discovered within our organization," Monica replied. "This isn't just about one flight attendant, Eleanor. There's a systemic problem that's been festering for years." A pause. "The board hired you to increase profitability, not lead a social justice crusade." Monica's grip tightened on her phone. "The board hired me to transform this airline. You can't have sustainable profitability when you're alienating customers and protecting toxic employees. What happened today isn't just morally wrong, it's bad business." Another lengthy pause followed before Eleanor spoke again. "You have the board's support for now, but we expect this situation to be resolved quickly with minimal additional damage to the company's reputation." "I appreciate the support," Monica said, "but this won't be quick or easy. Real transformation never is." After ending the call, Monica checked her messages again. Among them was a notification that Heather Wilson had been contacted by Skyline management and placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. She had reportedly been furious, threatening to contact her brother-in-law and make this all go away. Meanwhile, Thomas Coleman had sent a private message. "Miss Washington, I hope Mr. Thomas is doing well. I want you to know that many of us at Skyline are grateful for what you're doing. There are good people here who have been afraid to speak up. That's changing today. Thank you." The message reinforced Monica's conviction. Despite the board's concerns about stock prices, she knew she was on the right path. Later that evening, as the social media storm continued to intensify, Monica received an unexpected call. It was from Heather Wilson. "Miss Washington," Heather began, her voice tightly controlled. "I think there's been a misunderstanding about what happened today." "I witnessed your behavior firsthand, Miss Wilson," Monica replied calmly, as did dozens of other passengers who have now shared their experiences publicly. "There's no misunderstanding. Preston will never let this stick," Heather said, her composure cracking. "He runs operations. He can make this disappear like all the others." "Not anymore," Monica informed her. "Mr. Wilson has been placed on administrative leave as well, pending investigation into nepotism and complaint suppression." Silence followed then. "You can't do this. I've been with this airline for 20 years, which makes your behavior even more inexcusable," Monica stated. You've had 20 years to learn better. Instead, you've used your connection to power to avoid accountability. This isn't fair, Heather protested. What wasn't fair was how you treated passengers based on the color of their skin, Monica replied. What wasn't fair was dismissing a man's medical emergency because of your prejudice. What wasn't fair was creating a culture of fear where employees were afraid to do the right thing. After the call ended, Monica sat quietly reflecting on the day's events. What had started as a simple fact-finding mission had evolved into something far more significant. She had uncovered not just individual prejudice but institutional failure. One, the kind that could only thrive in an environment where accountability was selective and power protected the privileged. As midnight approached, Monica checked the latest updates. The video of her statement had reached 3 million views. Skyline was trending nationwide, with customers sharing their own experiences of discrimination on the airline. A boycott had begun to organize under the hashtag #GroundSkyline. Meanwhile, competing airlines had begun issuing statements about their own diversity and inclusion efforts, attempting to differentiate themselves from the unfolding Skyline disaster. In her final action of the day, Monica sent a message to all Skyline employees. It read, "Today marks a turning point for Skyline Airlines. What happened on flight SK457 was unacceptable but not isolated. For too long, we have allowed discrimination to go unchecked within our organization. That ends now. In the coming days, I will announce comprehensive changes to ensure that Skyline becomes a place where every employee and every passenger is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of race, gender, or background. To those who have been silenced or marginalized, I hear you. To those who have enabled or perpetuated discrimination, change, or find employment elsewhere, this is not just a moral imperative, but essential to our future success. We can and will do better." As she finally prepared for sleep, Monica checked on Gregory one last time. The hospital reported that he was resting comfortably with his daughter by his side. It was the only genuinely good news in a day filled with necessary but painful revelations. Tomorrow would bring the challenge of rebuilding. But tonight had been about exposing the truth, no matter how uncomfortable. And in that, at least Monica knew she had succeeded. 2 days after the diversion to Cleveland, Monica prepared to board another Skyline flight back to Chicago. This time, she wasn't traveling incognito. Dressed in a tailored Navy suit, with her CEO credentials clearly visible, she walked through the terminal drawing curious glances from travelers who recognized her from the viral videos. The past 48 hours had been a whirlwind of crisis management. She had visited Gregory Thomas at Cleveland Clinic, where he was recovering well from his heart attack. His daughter Amelia had been initially stunned to find the CEO of Skyline at her father's bedside, but quickly became an ally in Monica's efforts to transform the airline. "Dad's been flying Skyline for years," Amelia had told her. "He always said some crews were wonderful and others were challenging. But he never stopped hoping things would improve. They will," Monica had promised. Starting now, this morning's flight would be Monica's first opportunity to observe operations since the incident. She had specifically requested that Thomas Coleman be part of the crew, along with other attendants who had strong customer service records. As she approached the gate, the boarding area fell silent. Passengers looked up from their phones, many nudging their companions and pointing discreetly. Monica smiled and nodded to them, proceeding to speak with the gate agent. "Miss Washington, it's an honor," the young woman said nervously. "Everything's prepared as you requested. We'll begin boarding in 15 minutes. "Thank you, Jessica," Monica replied, reading the agent's name tag. "I appreciate your professionalism." Once on board, Monica was greeted warmly by the flight crew. Thomas Coleman stood at the front of the first-class cabin. His expression, a mixture of nervousness and pride. "Miss Washington," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for the opportunity to serve on this flight." "Thank you for doing the right thing when it mattered," Monica replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Not everyone would have had that courage." Thomas introduced her to the other flight attendants, all of whom seemed eager to demonstrate their commitment to excellent service. Monica noted how they greeted each boarding passenger with genuine warmth, regardless of race or class of service. As the boarding process continued, Monica took her seat, with again in economy class, though this time in the first row behind premium economy. She wanted to remain visible to the crew and passengers while still experiencing the standard economy service. A young black woman settled into the seat beside her doing a double take when she recognized Monica. "Oh my goodness, you're her. You're the CEO from the video." Monica smiled. "Yes, I'm Monica Washington." Keisha Johnson, the woman, replied, extending her hand. "I can't believe I'm sitting next to you. Your video inspired me so much. I've experienced that kind of treatment on flights before, but I never thought anyone in power was paying attention." "Too many weren't," Monica acknowledged. "But that's changing now." Throughout the boarding process, Monica observed the interactions between crew and passengers. The difference from her previous flight was stark. Every crew member maintained consistent professionalism with all passengers, regardless of appearance or seating assignment. Once everyone was seated, the lead flight attendant made an unexpected announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored today to have Skyline Airlines CEO Monica Washington traveling with us. Miss Washington has asked me to inform you that she'll be available to hear your feedback about Skyline's service after we reach cruising altitude. Your experiences matter to us, and we're committed to earning your trust." A ripple of murmurs spread through the cabin, followed by spontaneous applause. Monica nodded in acknowledgement, touched by the positive response. As the plane took off from Cleveland heading for the short flight to Chicago, Monica reflected on the conversations she'd had with her executive team over the past 2 days. The investigation into Preston Wilson and Heather had already uncovered disturbing patterns of complaint suppression and retaliatory actions against employees who spoke up about discrimination. More concerning were the preliminary findings from Human Resources, showing systematic barriers to advancement for employees of color. Black and Latino flight attendants remained concentrated in less desirable routes, with fewer opportunities for premium service, despite comparable or superior performance ratings. Monica had already begun implementing changes. A confidential reporting system was being established that would bypass traditional management chains, ensuring complaints reached appropriate oversight without interference. Training programs on bias recognition and intervention were being fast-tracked for all customer-facing staff. Once the plane reached cruising altitude, Monica moved to the galley area, where passengers could approach her one by one. The stories they shared reinforced what she already knew, that Heather's behavior, while extreme, wasn't isolated. Many frequent flyers described similar experiences of differential treatment based on race. "I stopped flying Skyline last year because of it," one businessman told her. "But seeing your response has made me reconsider. If you're serious about change, I'm willing to give the airline another chance." "We are absolutely serious," Monica assured him. "And I welcome you to hold us accountable if your experience suggests otherwise." During a brief lull in the conversations, Thomas approached with a coffee. "How are we doing so far?" he asked tentatively. "The service is excellent," Monica replied sincerely. "But I'm more interested in what happens when I'm not on board. That's the real test." Thomas nodded. "Some of us have been talking about that. About 20 flight attendants have formed a group chat since the incident. We're committed to calling out discrimination when we see it supporting each other through proper reporting channels." "That's exactly the kind of grassroots change we need," Monica said. "Leadership can set the tone and create policies, but cultural transformation happens person by person, flight by flight." "We'd like to formalize it," Thomas suggested. "Maybe create a diversity and inclusion committee within the flight attendant corps. With your support, of course." "You have it," Monica promised. "Send me a proposal directly." As the short flight progressed, Monica continued speaking with passengers and crew members. She took notes on their suggestions, from simple service improvements to more substantial policy changes. One flight attendant, Rebecca Alvarez, shared her own experiences of being passed over for premium routes despite her seniority. It was always the same excuse, that I wasn't polished enough for first-class service. Meanwhile, newer hires who looked a certain way got those assignments immediately. That stops now, Monica stated firmly. Route assignments will be based on performance metrics and seniority, with regular rotation to ensure fairness. I'll have HR audit the current distribution immediately. As the plane began its descent into Chicago, Monica returned to her seat beside Keisha. "Did you get good feedback?" Keisha asked. "Invaluable," Monica replied. "But the real work is just beginning." "Will you keep flying economy?" Keisha asked with a smile. "Regularly," Monica confirmed. "How can I understand our core business if I'm isolated in first class or a private jet? Besides, the conversations I have back here are far more illuminating than anything I'd hear in the boardroom." After landing, Monica remained on board until all other passengers had deplaned. She gathered the flight crew for a brief meeting. "Thank you for exemplary service today," she told them. "But I know you were on your best behavior because I was present. The true test of our transformation will be consistent excellence when no one's watching. That's the standard I expect going forward." Thomas spoke up. "Miss Washington, many of us have wanted this change for years. We just didn't think anyone in leadership cared enough to fight for it." "Well, now you know differently," Monica replied. "And I'm counting on all of you to maintain this standard and hold your colleagues accountable." As she finally exited the aircraft, Monica checked her phone to find an update from her executive team. The internal investigation had expanded, with more employees coming forward about discrimination and nepotism throughout the company. Meanwhile, social media sentiment was beginning to shift. While criticism of Skyline remained intense, many users were expressing cautious optimism about Monica's leadership and commitment to change. Tomorrow would bring her first board meeting as CEO, a meeting that would now focus on cultural transformation rather than just financial performance. Monica knew some board members would resist seeing diversity and inclusion as secondary to profitability rather than essential to it. She was prepared for that battle. The past few days had only strengthened her resolve. Skyline wouldn't just weather this crisis, it would emerge stronger, more equitable, and ultimately more successful because of it. As she walked through O'Hare Airport toward her waiting car, Monica passed a television monitor showing a news program. The chyron at the bottom read, "Skyline CEO flies economy again, meets directly with passengers after discrimination incident." Above it was an image of Monica speaking with passengers in the galley of today's flight. The transformation had begun. Now came the harder part, ensuring it took root and flourished throughout the organization. The Skyline Airlines headquarters in downtown Chicago projected power and stability with its gleaming glass facade and commanding view of Lake Michigan. On the 30th floor, the executive conference room had been prepared for the emergency board meeting called in response to the viral discrimination incident. Heather Wilson arrived 15 minutes early, confidence evident in her stride despite the circumstances. She had exchanged her flight attendant uniform for a conservative navy pantsuit, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Though technically on administrative leave, her brother-in-law Preston had assured her this meeting was merely a formality, an opportunity to tell her side of the story before being quietly reinstated. "These things blow over," he'd told her. "The board just needs to show they're taking it seriously. Once the media moves on to the next outrage, everything will go back to normal." As she entered the conference room, Heather found several board members already present engaged in hushed conversations that abruptly ceased when she appeared. She recognized Eleanor Bennett, the board chairwoman who merely nodded in acknowledgement before returning to her tablet. Preston arrived moments later, his usual commanding presence somewhat diminished. He gave Heather a reassuring smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just stick to the script," he murmured as he passed. "Passenger was disruptive. You followed protocol. Medical situation was handled according to training." Heather nodded, though uneasiness had begun to creep in. The atmosphere in the room felt different from what Preston had described, tense and anticipatory rather than procedural. By 9:00 a.m., the conference room was filled with Skyline's entire executive leadership team and board of directors. Conspicuously absent was the new CEO, Monica Washington, whose appointment had been announced just weeks earlier. "Perhaps she's reconsidering her position," Heather whispered to Preston. "This can't be the introduction to the company she wanted." Preston didn't respond, his attention fixed on the door. At precisely 9:01, the door opened, and conversation immediately ceased. Monica Washington entered dressed impeccably in a crimson suit that stood out starkly against the sea of navy and gray surrounding the table. She carried herself with unmistakable authority, making deliberate eye contact with each person as she proceeded to the head of the table. Heather felt a jolt of recognition, followed by cold dread that spread from her chest outward. Though the woman looked different in executive attire, with her hair elegantly styled, there was no mistaking her face. "That's her," Heather whispered, grabbing Preston's arm. "That's the passenger from economy, the one who was recording me." Preston paled visibly, his earlier confidence evaporating. "That's impossible." Monica took her place at the head of the table, surveying the room with calm determination. Her gaze finally settled on Heather, holding it for a measured moment before addressing the group. "Good morning. Thank you all for adjusting your schedules for this emergency meeting. As you know, an incident occurred on Flight SK-457 2 days ago that has exposed serious issues within our organization. Today, we will address those issues directly and decisively." She nodded to her assistant, who distributed tablets to everyone present. "What you're receiving is a comprehensive report compiled over the past 48 hours. It includes passenger testimonies, crew statements, and preliminary findings from our internal investigation." Heather glanced down at the tablet, seeing video thumbnails of herself confronting passengers on the flight. Her stomach clenched. "Before we proceed further," Monica continued, "I want to address Miss Wilson directly." She turned to face Heather. "Do you recognize me, Miss Wilson?" The room fell silent. All eyes shifted between Monica and Heather. Heather cleared her throat. You were the passenger in 23C, the one who kept recording, despite being told it was against policy." "There is no such policy," Monica stated calmly. "Just as there is no policy requiring economy passengers to use only economy restrooms. Just as there is no policy justifying the differential treatment you exhibited toward passengers based on their race." Heather straightened in her chair. "I treated all passengers according to company standards. If certain individuals felt slighted, that's their subjective interpretation." Monica picked up her tablet and tapped the screen. The large display on the wall came to life, showing a compilation of video clips from the flight. The footage captured Heather's repeated dismissive behavior toward Black and Latino passengers, contrasted with her warm, attentive service to white passengers. "Is this subjective interpretation, Miss Wilson?" Monica asked when the video ended. Heather's face had flushed deep red. "Those clips are taken out of context. That passenger was being difficult from the moment she boarded." "That passenger was me," Monica reminded her. "I was conducting a standard evaluation of our customer experience, something any responsible CEO would do." The revelation hung in the air. Several board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Preston stared straight ahead, avoiding eye contact with anyone. I didn't know who you were," Heather stammered. "If you had identified yourself, that would have defeated the purpose," Monica interrupted. "I needed to experience our service as our customers do. What I witnessed was not just poor customer service, Miss Wilson. It was systematic discrimination. She turned to the entire room. But this meeting isn't just about one flight attendant's behavior. The investigation has uncovered a pattern of complaint suppression and retribution against employees who report discrimination. Monica tapped her tablet again. The wall display showed a spreadsheet of customer complaints filed against Heather over the past 5 years, dozens of them, many explicitly mentioning racial discrimination. Beside it appeared documentation showing how each complaint had been dismissed or buried. Mr. Wilson, Monica addressed Preston directly. Can you explain why none of these complaints resulted in disciplinary action or retraining requirements? Preston cleared his throat. Standard procedure is to investigate all complaints thoroughly. Those that couldn't be substantiated were closed. And yet Monica countered complaints against flight attendants without family connections to senior management resulted in disciplinary action at a rate 8 times higher. Our data analyst confirmed this pattern just yesterday. The board members exchanged concerned glances. Eleanor Bennett leaned forward. Miss Washington, while this is disturbing, I must ask Eleanor, what evidence do you have linking Mr. Wilson directly to complaint suppression? Monica nodded to her assistant, who distributed additional documents, emails, text messages, modified records. Mr. Wilson actively intervened in at least 27 cases involving his sister-in-law, routing complaints to himself and personally dismissing them without proper investigation. Preston's facade finally cracked. This is a witch hunt. You've been CEO for 3 weeks? You don't understand how this business works. Sometimes we have to make judgment calls. Judgment calls that systematically protect discriminatory behavior, Monica interrupted. That's not leadership, Mr. Wilson. That's corruption. She turned back to Heather. But let's return to Flight SK 457. The most serious issue wasn't the discrimination, as reprehensible as that was. It was your response to Mr. Thomas's medical emergency. The display changed to show video of Heather dismissing Gregory's symptoms, refusing to check his vitals, and attempting to prevent Dr. Patel from assisting. Miss Wilson, your actions potentially endangered a passenger's life. Mr. Thomas suffered a heart attack. Had the flight not been diverted against your wishes, the outcome could have been tragic. Heather's composure finally collapsed entirely. This isn't fair. You set me up. You came on that flight looking for problems. I came on that flight hoping to find excellence, Monica corrected. Instead, I found prejudice so ingrained that you didn't even try to hide it. I found a senior flight attendant who used her connection to power to avoid accountability for years. And I found a management structure that enabled this behavior rather than correcting it. Monica turned to address the entire room again. This stops today. Miss Wilson's employment with Skyline Airlines is terminated effective immediately. Mr. Wilson is similarly terminated for ethical violations, conflict of interest, and dereliction of duty. Preston shot to his feet. You can't do this. The board won't allow it. Eleanor Bennett spoke for the first time. Actually, Mr. Wilson, the board has reviewed the evidence and fully supports Miss Washington's decision. This is my airline, Preston shouted. I've given 20 years to Skyline. And in those 20 years, Monica replied calmly, you've created a culture where discrimination was protected, where employees feared reporting misconduct, and where customer experience suffered as a result. That culture ends today. Heather, who had been staring at the table in shock, suddenly looked up with desperate anger. You think firing us solves anything? This is how the real world works. People respond better to their own kind. That's not discrimination. It's human nature. A painful silence followed this outburst. Monica regarded Heather steadily. What you're describing isn't human nature, Miss Wilson. It's prejudice. And it has no place in this company or in the skies we serve. She nodded to security personnel who had entered quietly during the presentation. "Please escort Miss Wilson and Mr. Wilson from the building. Their access credentials have been deactivated." As the former employees were led away, Monica addressed the remaining executives and board members. "This is just the beginning. The investigation will continue, and anyone found to have enabled discrimination will face appropriate consequences. But more importantly, we are implementing comprehensive structural changes to ensure this never happens again." She outlined her planned mandatory bias training for all staff anonymous reporting systems that bypassed normal management chains route assignment reforms to ensure fair distribution, customer service metrics that specifically tracked equal treatment and diversity initiatives at all levels of the organization. "These aren't just moral imperatives," Monica concluded. "They're business imperatives. An airline that systematically alienates passengers of color is an airline that will fail in an increasingly diverse marketplace. We can do better. We will do better, starting today." As the meeting concluded, Eleanor Bennett approached Monica privately. "That was decisive." "It was necessary," Monica replied. Eleanor nodded. "The board has concerns about potential lawsuits from Wilson and his sister-in-law." "Let them sue," Monica said confidently. "The evidence is overwhelming, and a courtroom would only bring more public attention to behavior we're trying to reform. And the stock price will recover as we demonstrate genuine change," Monica assured her. "I didn't take this job to maintain the status quo, Eleanor. I took it to transform Skyline into the industry leader it should be. That means addressing the rot, not just painting over it." Eleanor studied her for a moment before offering a small smile. "The board made the right choice with you, Monica. Just remember that transformation is a marathon, not a sprint." "I'm well aware," Monica replied, "but today was the starting gun." As the boardroom emptied, Monica remained looking out at the Chicago skyline. The revelation of her identity to Heather and Preston had been satisfying, but it was only one small moment in the larger journey ahead. The real revelation had been what she discovered about Skyline itself, both its failures and its potential. For every Heather Wilson, there was a Thomas Coleman trying to do right by all passengers. For every Preston Wilson burying complaints, there were dozens of employees desperately wanting change. Monica's job now was to empower the latter while removing the former. The path forward was clear, though certainly not easy. Her phone buzzed with a text from the hospital. Gregory Thomas had been discharged and was recovering well at his daughter's home in Chicago. He had asked to speak with Monica when convenient. That, she decided, would be her next stop. Before diving further into corporate transformation, she wanted to check on the man whose medical emergency had forced the ultimate confrontation. After all, Skyline's purpose wasn't spreadsheets or stock prices. It was people, employees and passengers alike. Remembering that would be the foundation of everything to come. 6 months after the fateful flight that exposed discrimination at Skyline Airlines, Monica Washington stood at the podium in the company's main training center. Before her sat 500 employees, NETA, a mix of flight attendants, pilots, gate agents, and ground crew, all attending the final session of Skyline's new comprehensive diversity and inclusion training program. "When I became CEO of this airline," Monica began, "I promised transformation, not just damage control. Today marks an important milestone in that journey, but it is far from the destination." The audience listened attentively, many nodding in agreement. Among them sat Thomas Coleman, now wearing the uniform of a senior flight attendant and newly appointed member of the Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Council that Monica had established. "In 6 months, we've implemented structural changes throughout every level of our organization," Monica continued. "Anonymous reporting systems that bypass traditional management chains, transparent promotion processes, route assignments based on performance metrics and seniority rather than subjective evaluations, customer satisfaction surveys that specifically track equal treatment across all passenger demographics. She clicked to the next slide, which showed Skyline's latest performance metrics. The results speak for themselves. Overall customer satisfaction has increased 18%. Employee retention is up 12%. Complaints about discriminatory treatment have decreased by 74%. And those complaints that do arise are now addressed promptly and thoroughly without exception. These achievements had not come easily. The first months of Monica's tenure had been tumultuous. Preston Wilson and Heather had indeed filed wrongful termination lawsuits, generating additional negative publicity. Several other executives who had enabled discriminatory practices had resigned rather than adapt to the new accountability standards. The stock price had initially plummeted further, leading to tense confrontations with certain board members who prioritized short-term financial performance over cultural transformation. But Monica had stood firm, confident that meaningful change would ultimately drive sustainable growth. Today, I want to recognize someone whose courage helped catalyze this transformation, Monica said, gesturing to the side of the stage. Mr. Gregory Thomas, please join me. Gregory, fully recovered from his heart attack, walked confidently to the podium. The audience applauded warmly as Monica embraced him. Mr. Thomas experienced discrimination that could have cost him his life, Monica told the audience. But instead of simply filing a complaint and moving on, he chose to become part of our solution. For the past 4 months, he has served as a consultant on our customer experience team, helping us understand how small interactions can make profound differences in how passengers feel about our airline. Gregory nodded appreciatively before addressing the crowd. I've been flying for over 50 years, he said. I've seen the industry change in many ways. Some good, some not so good. What Skyline is doing now is revolutionary. You're not just providing transportation. You're creating an environment where everyone is treated with dignity. That matters more than any amenity or loyalty program you could offer. As Gregory returned to his seat, Monica continued her presentation, detailing the next phase of Skyline's transformation. The company was implementing new hiring practices to ensure diversity at all levels, establishing mentorship programs for employees from underrepresented groups, and developing partnerships with organizations serving diverse communities. But perhaps the most significant change, Monica said, comes from our transparent accountability system. She clicked to a slide showing Skyline's new public-facing dashboard, where customers could track the airline's progress on key diversity and inclusion metrics, STS, from the demographic composition of their workforce to response rates for discrimination complaints. We're not just making promises, we're providing verifiable results. When we fall short, and sometimes we still do, we acknowledge it openly and outline specific steps for improvement. This approach had initially frightened the marketing department, who worried that publicizing occasional failures would damage the brand. But Monica had insisted on transparency, believing that customers would respect honesty more than perfection. She had been right. Industry analysts now regularly cited Skyline's accountability system as a new gold standard, and several competing airlines had begun implementing similar approaches, though none quite as comprehensive. Before we conclude today's session, Monica said, I want to introduce one more person who has been integral to our transformation journey. She gestured toward the back of the room where Heather Wilson stood hesitantly. A murmur of surprise rippled through the audience as Heather made her way to the stage. Many of you recognize Miss Wilson from the viral video that exposed discrimination within our airline, Monica acknowledged. What you may not know is that in the months since her termination, Heather has undergone a profound personal transformation. Heather approached the microphone, visibly nervous but determined. 6 months ago, I stood in a Skyline aircraft, believing that my actions were justified, she began. I had convinced myself that treating certain passengers differently was somehow acceptable, even necessary. I was wrong. She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. After losing my job, I was angry. I blamed everyone but myself. It took weeks of reflection and eventually professional counseling to confront my own prejudices. Prejudices I had denied for decades. The room remained silent, every person present captivated by this unexpected testimony. 3 months ago, I reached out to Miss Washington, not expecting any response. To my surprise, she agreed to meet with me. Instead of the hostility I deserved, she offered something more challenging, a path to redemption through education and service. Heather turned to face Monica directly. "You could have simply fired me and moved on. Instead, you showed me that transformation isn't just for airlines, it's for people too. You held me accountable while still seeing my humanity." Monica nodded, acknowledging Heather's words before addressing the audience again. Miss Wilson has completed extensive training on unconscious bias, cultural competency, and inclusive customer service. For the past month, she has been volunteering with our community outreach program. Sharing her story with industry groups is a powerful example of why these issues matter. To be clear, Monica continued, Miss Wilson is not being reinstated as a Skyline employee, but her willingness to acknowledge her mistakes and work toward genuine change represents the kind of transformation we're striving for throughout our industry. Heather returned to her seat as Monica concluded the session. When I became CEO, I said that real change wouldn't be quick or easy. 6 months later, I can tell you it's been neither. We've lost employees who couldn't adapt to our new standards. We've faced criticism from those who see diversity and inclusion as merely public relations exercises. We've made mistakes along the way. Monica's expression grew determined, but we've also created a workplace where more employees feel valued and respected. We've built systems that don't just promise accountability, but deliver it. And we've begun to earn back the trust of customers who had experienced discrimination on our flights. She surveyed the room, making eye contact with employees throughout the audience. This transformation isn't complete. It may never be. But the journey itself is changing who we are as a company and how we serve our diverse global community. That journey continues today, tomorrow, and every day forward. As the training session concluded with a standing ovation, Thomas Coleman approached Monica. "That was unexpected," he said, nodding toward Heather, who was speaking quietly with Gregory Thomas in a corner of the room, including her in the program. "Transformation isn't just about systems," Monica replied. "It's about people." Heather's journey from denial to accountability is powerful precisely because it's difficult. Not everyone is capable of that kind of self-reflection. Thomas nodded thoughtfully. "True. Though I noticed Preston Wilson wasn't invited. Some transformations never happen," Monica acknowledged. "Preston continues to insist he did nothing wrong. Last I heard, he was suing us for the 3rd time. And the board. Are they still concerned about the stock price?" Monica smiled. "Not since it recovered and surpassed its previous high last month. It turns out that doing the right thing can also be profitable when it improves customer loyalty and employee retention." As they walked toward the exit, Monica spotted Skyline's newest flight crew members, a diverse group that more accurately reflected the passengers they would serve. Their training had included not just technical skills, but also extensive education on equity and inclusion from day one. 6 months earlier, Monica had boarded a Skyline flight hoping to evaluate customer experience and identify areas for improvement. She could never have anticipated the journey that would follow, the discrimination she would witness, the viral video that would expose it, and the comprehensive transformation it would catalyze. What had begun as a crisis had become an opportunity for meaningful change. Skyline wasn't perfect, no organization was, but it had embraced the difficult work of addressing systemic bias head-on. The airline that had once protected discrimination now actively worked to eradicate it. Outside the training center, Monica paused to look up at a newly installed banner. It displayed Skyline's revised mission statement, connecting diverse people and places with dignity, respect, and excellence on every flight for every passenger. The words weren't just marketing. They were a promise and a standard against which the airline would continue to measure itself, a standard that had been forged in the crucible of confrontation and transformation. What did you think of this story about accountability and transformation? Have you ever witnessed someone in power take responsibility for creating positive change like Monica did? Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video if you believe in the importance of addressing discrimination in all industries. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories that inspire change, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that transformation is possible. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the most important journeys begin with a single flight. The story of Monica Washington teaches us that true leadership isn't about titles or authority, but about courage to confront uncomfortable truths. When discrimination festers in organizations, it requires someone willing to experience problems firsthand, rather than viewing them through filtered reports. Real transformation demands accountability at all levels, from frontline employees to executives who enable harmful behavior. Monica demonstrated that meaningful change comes not from quick PR fixes, but from systemic overhaul backed by transparent metrics. Most importantly, we learned that addressing discrimination isn't just morally right, but makes good business sense. Companies that allow bias to persist ultimately damage their reputation, lose customer trust, and undermine their financial success. The path to transformation may be difficult, but as Skyline Airlines discovered, it leads to a stronger, more equitable organization that better serves everyone. What moment in this story resonated most with you? Perhaps Monica's undercover experience, Gregory's medical emergency, or even Heather's eventual journey toward accountability. Share your thoughts in the comments below. You've ever witnessed discrimination and wondered if speaking up could make a difference? This story shows that it absolutely can. Hit the like button if you believe leaders should experience their companies as customers do, and subscribe for more powerful stories of courage and transformation in the workplace. Don't forget to share this video with someone facing workplace discrimination who needs to know change is possible. Thank you for watching, and remember, one person with conviction can transform an entire organization.